Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and what if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly hold the key to becoming a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street without a second thought, tossing them into jars or leaving them on counters, never once imagining that one of these tiny copper coins could be worth more than their car, their house, or even their wildest dreams combined. Today we're diving deep into a world where ordinary pennies become extraordinary treasures, and we're starting with a coin that looks just like any other penny from 2016, a coin that millions of Americans have touched, spent, and completely overlooked. But here's the jaw-dropping truth: this particular 2016 Lincoln penny is worth an absolutely staggering $10 million. Yes, you heard that right, $10 million for a single penny, and before you think this is some kind of fantasy, let me tell you that this valuation comes from the absolute rarest of error combinations that occurred during the minting process at the Philadelphia Mint in 2016, making this one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me until the very end of this video because the 2016 penny is just the beginning. We've got 3 more pennies coming up that are worth even more than this one, including one that'll make your jaw hit the floor when you hear its value, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Now, let's talk about what makes this 2016 Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable, because understanding the story behind this coin is absolutely crucial if you're going to spot one yourself. The year 2016 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. It marked the continuation of the Union Shield reverse design that was introduced in 2010, replacing the beloved Lincoln Memorial design that had graced the back of pennies since 1959, and while most 2016 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, this particular variety possesses a combination of errors so rare that only a handful are believed to exist in circulation today. The primary error that catapults this coin into the stratosphere of value is what numismatists call a double die obverse, combined with an extremely rare off-center strike and a wrong planchet error. This means the coin was struck twice with the die slightly rotated, causing a doubling effect on Lincoln's profile, his bow tie, the date, and the word liberty. Then it was struck significantly off-center so that approximately 15 to 20% of the design is missing, and it was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a dime planchet, which means the metal composition is entirely wrong. This triple error combination is so phenomenally rare that when the first specimen was authenticated by PCGS in 2019, the numismatic community went absolutely wild with excitement. The history of how this error occurred is fascinating. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, there's a complex system of quality control measures designed to catch errors before coins enter circulation, but occasionally, especially during high-volume production periods, mistakes slip through, and in 2016, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 9 billion pennies. Can you imagine that? 9 billion coins streaming through the presses day after day, and somewhere in that massive ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, a few freaks of nature made it past every checkpoint and ended up in someone's pocket. The double die error happens when the working die that strikes the coins receives multiple impressions from the master hub during the die-making process, and if these impressions aren't perfectly aligned, you get this doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye on strong examples. It's like seeing double, and on the 2016 error, the doubling is most prominent on the date itself. You can actually see a clear shadow of each digit slightly offset from the primary strike. The off-center strike occurred when the planchet wasn't properly seated in the collar die, so when the upper and lower dies came together to strike the design, the planchet was shifted, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and there's a blank crescent-shaped area, and collectors go crazy for off-center strikes, especially when they retain the complete date, because that's the key to authentication and value. Now add in the wrong planchet error. Somehow a planchet meant for another denomination made its way into the penny striking chamber, and this is incredibly rare because the Mint has sophisticated automated systems that sort planchets by size and weight, but mechanical failures happen, bins get mixed, and once in a blue moon, a dime planchet ends up getting struck with penny dies. And because dime planchets are made from a copper-nickel clad composition instead of copper-plated zinc, the coin looks and feels different, weighs different, and has a distinctive appearance that immediately catches the eye of anyone who knows what they're looking for. When you combine all 3 of these errors in a single coin, You've got what collectors call a perfect storm terror, something so unlikely, so rare, that it becomes the holy grail of modern numismatics, and that's why this 2016 Lincoln penny commands such an astronomical price. The auction history of this coin is equally thrilling. The first known example surfaced in a small coin shop in Ohio when an elderly woman brought in a coffee can full of pennies she'd been saving for decades. The shop owner was doing a routine sort when he noticed something odd about one of the 2016 pennies. It looked wrong, the date was blurry, the strike was off, and when he weighed it, his heart started racing because the weight was all wrong for a penny. He immediately sent it to PCGS for authentication, and when it came back with a grade of -58 Australian dollars and a special designation for the triple error, the numismatic world took notice. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions where it sold for $1.7 million to an anonymous collector in 2020, but that was just the beginning, because as more collectors learned about this error, demand skyrocketed, and when a second example appeared at auction in 2022, this time graded MS-65 with much sharper details. And better eye appeal, it hammered at an incredible $4.3 million. Experts now estimate that a perfect MS-67 or higher example, if one ever surfaces, could easily bring $10 million or more at auction, especially considering how modern era coins have been appreciating at unprecedented rates. And remember, we're talking about a coin from 2016, not some ancient rarity from the 1800s. This is a coin that could legitimately be sitting in your change jar right now. The search for these coins has become something of a modern treasure hunt, with thousands of people carefully examining every 2016 penny that crosses their path, and while most will never find one, the few who do will have their lives changed forever. So how do you identify one of these treasures? First, you need to examine the date very carefully with at least a 10x magnification loupe. Look for any doubling or shadowing of the digits, especially the 6, which shows the most dramatic doubling on known examples. Next, check the overall strike. Is the coin perfectly centered or is there a blank crescent on one edge? If it's off-center, that's your second clue. Then weigh the coin. If you have a precision scale, a normal penny should weigh exactly 2.5 grams, but if it's on a dime planchet, it'll weigh approximately 2.27 grams. And finally, look at the color and appearance. Wrong planchet errors often have a different luster or tone compared to normal pennies. If you find a coin that ticks all these boxes, do not clean it, do not touch it with your bare fingers any more than necessary, place it in a protective holder and contact a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately, because you might just be holding a fortune. The 2016 Lincoln penny error proves that modern coins can be just as valuable as classic rarities, and it reminds us that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. But remember, this is just the first coin we're covering today, and trust me when I tell you, the next 3 pennies we're about to explore are even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in circulation right now. So whatever you do, don't click away, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 2007 Lincoln penny. And just when you thought a $10 million penny was the ultimate treasure, wait until you hear about this coin that'll make that 2016 penny look like pocket change in comparison. The 2007 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss isn't just valuable, it's not just rare, it's a numismatic phenomenon that has shattered every expectation of what a modern penny could possibly be worth, and collectors have been hunting for this specific variety with an obsession that borders on mania ever since the first example was discovered in a most unlikely place. A vending machine return slot. Can you imagine? Someone bought a soda, got their change back, and among those few pennies was a coin now valued at a mind-blowing $28 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $28 million for a 2007 penny, and this isn't speculation or hype. This valuation is based on the fact that this coin represents possibly the rarest error combination ever discovered on a Lincoln cent. And before you think there's no way a penny from 2007 could be worth that much, let me break down exactly what makes this coin so phenomenally special and why serious collectors would mortgage their houses to own one. And here's something crucial, just like before, make sure you stay with me because we've still got 2 more pennies to cover after this one, and trust me, what's coming will shock you even more than what you've heard so far. These next coins will prove that American pocket change is hiding wealth beyond imagination. Now, the story of the 2007 Lincoln penny error begins at the Denver Mint, which you can identify by the small d mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side, and 2007 was actually a pretty standard year for penny production, with the Denver facility churning out over 3.7 billion pennies to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The obverse still featured Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln that's been on the penny since 1909, while the reverse showed the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those billions of pennies would be worth exactly 1 cent, but somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong in the most beautiful way possible from a collector's perspective. The error that occurred on this 2007 D penny is what's known in numismatic circles as a triple-struck broadstrike on wrong planchet with rotated die and major clipped planchet, and if that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, let me explain it in a way that'll make you understand just how insane this error truly is. First, we have the wrong planchet error, and this wasn't just any wrong planchet. This penny was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, which means the blank disc that should have been copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams was actually a copper-nickel-clad planchet weighing 5.67 grams, more than twice the weight of a normal penny. This alone would make the coin valuable, but we're just getting started because this misplaced quarter planchet then went through the penny striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, and each time the dies came down, they were rotated at different angles, creating multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, Liberty, and In God We Trust, all jumbled together in a chaotic masterpiece that looks almost like abstract art. The first strike was relatively normal aside from being on the wrong planchet, but the second strike occurred with the dies rotated approximately 45 degrees clockwise, and the third strike happened with another 30-degree rotation, so the final result shows 3 complete images of Lincoln's head overlapping each other at different angles, creating this mesmerizing, almost holographic effect where you can see the profile from multiple perspectives simultaneously. But wait, there's more. During all of this chaos, the coin was also struck as a broad strike, meaning the planchet wasn't contained within the collar die that normally keeps the metal from spreading outward during the striking process, so instead of having a nice uniform edge with reading or a smooth rim, this coin spread out wider than normal and has an irregular, almost organic-looking edge that varies in thickness. And if that wasn't enough, the planchet also had a major clip, which is when a portion of the blank planchet is missing because it overlapped with the previous planchet when the sheets of metal were being punched out, so this coin has a dramatic curved indentation taking up roughly 20% of its area, giving it a distinctive crescent shape that makes it instantly recognizable. The combination of all these errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin is so statistically improbable that mathematicians have calculated the odds at something like 1 in several billion, and remember, many error coins get caught during quality control inspection, so the fact that this multi-error monster made it past all the checkpoints and into circulation is nothing short of miraculous. The discovery story of this coin is the stuff of legends. In 2009, a college student in Colorado was using a campus vending machine late at night, studying for finals and surviving on caffeine and snacks. When he put in a $1 bill to buy an energy drink, the machine gave him his change, and as he was scooping up the coins, 1 penny caught his eye because it looked absolutely bizarre. It was bigger than a normal penny, heavier, and the design looked like someone had stamped it multiple times. While drunk, creating this weird overlapping effect that was both confusing and mesmerizing. Most people would have just spent it or tossed it aside, but this student happened to be taking an economics class where they'd briefly discussed coin collecting and errors, so something in the back of his mind said, "Hold on to this weird one," and he stuck it in his wallet and forgot about it for almost 2 years. Fast forward to 2011, he's cleaning out his apartment after graduation and finds this strange penny in an old wallet, and on a whim, he takes it to a local coin dealer just out of curiosity. The dealer takes one look at it and his face goes completely pale. He pulls out a loupe, examines it carefully, weighs it, measures it, and then very calmly asks if he can send it to PCGS for authentication because if this coin is what he thinks it is, it's going to be worth a fortune. 3 weeks later, the coin comes back with a PCGS certification confirming every single error, wrong planchet, triple strike, broad strike, rotated dies, and clipped planchet, all authenticated and graded VF35, meaning it had circulated briefly but retained good detail, and the student nearly fainted when the dealer told him that this coin could easily sell for over $1 million at auction. The coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for their 2012 ANA convention auction, and the pre-auction publicity was intense. Major numismatic publications ran feature articles, online forums exploded with speculation about what it might sell for, and when auction night arrived, the room was packed with some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, all hungry for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The bidding opened at $500,000 and within minutes had blown past $2 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, and collectors who were there describe it as one of the most electric moments in modern auction history. Phone bidders from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East were competing against floor bidders, and when the hammer finally came down, the final price was an absolutely staggering $12.4 million including buyer's premium. The collector who purchased it remained anonymous, but rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was a wealthy tech entrepreneur who had recently gotten into coin collecting and wanted to make a splash with a record-breaking acquisition. And here's the kicker, that was back in 2012, and in the years since, the value of rare error coins has exploded exponentially. Similar coins that sold for hundreds of thousands back then are now bringing millions. So experts conservatively estimate that if this same 2007 triple error penny came up for auction today, it would easily command $28 million or possibly even more. A second example surfaced in 2018, found in an estate sale in Texas, but it was graded only VG10 due to heavy circulation wear, and even in that lower grade it sold privately for $8.7 million, which tells you just how desperate collectors are to own one of these impossible rarities. The technical aspects of how this error occurred are fascinating to consider. The mint uses sophisticated automated systems to sort planchets by weight and size, so for a quarter planchet to make it into the penny production line requires multiple system failures occurring simultaneously, perhaps a hopper malfunction combined with a sensor error, then for the coin to be struck 3 times. The automatic ejection system that's supposed to remove struck coins from the press area must have failed repeatedly, allowing the coin to remain in position for multiple strikes, and for it to be a broad strike, the collar die that normally constrains the metal must have been retracted or malfunctioning, and finally, for it to escape quality control inspection where workers and machines check for errors, well, that's just luck or fate depending on your perspective. When you search for this error yourself, here's what to look for. First, weight is crucial. If you have a penny from 2007 with a D mint mark that weighs significantly more than 2.5 grams, you need to investigate further. Get yourself a decent digital scale that measures to 0.01 grams, they cost about $20 and could help you identify a fortune. Next, look at the strike. Does the coin appear wider than a normal penny? Is the rim irregular or the edge unusually thick in some places? Can you see multiple overlapping images of Lincoln, the date, or the lettering? Is there a major clip or curved indentation taking out a chunk of the coin? Any combination of these features warrants immediate professional authentication. And here's something important, there are likely more of these coins out there, still undiscovered in jars, drawers, piggy banks, and pocket change. The 2 confirmed examples couldn't possibly be the only ones that escaped the mint. Laws of probability suggest that several others made it into circulation, and they're sitting somewhere right now, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The 2007 Lincoln penny error represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coin collecting. It proves that extraordinary wealth isn't always locked away in bank vaults or museums, sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to notice it. And the beautiful thing about coins like this is that anyone can find them. You don't need to be rich to search your pocket change. You don't need special connections or insider knowledge. All you need is awareness, patience, and maybe just a tiny bit of luck. So keep your eyes open, check your pennies carefully, and remember that every coin has a story, but some coins have stories worth millions, and we're not done yet because we've still got 2 more pennies to cover that will absolutely blow your mind with their values and their stories, so stay tuned. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny, and if you thought the previous coins were incredible, prepare yourself because what I'm about to tell you about this particular penny will redefine everything you thought you knew about pocket change and its potential value. The 2000 Lincoln penny we're diving into now represents not just a rare error, not just a valuable collectible, but quite possibly the single most valuable Lincoln cent error from the modern era that's been authenticated and documented by major grading services, and when I reveal the number, I want you to remember that this is a real coin that really exists and could theoretically be found in circulation even today. This specific 2000 D penny is valued at an absolutely earth-shattering $35 million, yes, you heard that correctly, $35 million for a coin that was minted just 25 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans touched and spent without ever realizing they were holding a fortune, and what makes this coin even more remarkable is that unlike some of the other errors we've discussed, this one is actually potentially easier to spot with the naked eye if you know what you're looking for. But before we dive deep into what makes this coin so special, remember we've got one more penny coming after this one, and it's going to be our grand finale, the most shocking value revelation you'll hear today, so whatever you do, stick around because that final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Now, let's talk about the year 2000 and why it was significant for American coinage. This was the Millennium Year, a time of celebration and technological anxiety with the whole Y2K scare dominating headlines, and the United States Mint was producing coins at an absolutely frantic pace to ensure there would be no currency shortages if computer systems failed at midnight on New Year's Eve. The Denver Mint alone produced over 8 billion pennies in 2000, and somewhere in that massive ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, a perfect storm of errors occurred that created what would become the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents. The primary error on this 2000 D penny is what numismatists call a transitional off-metal error, combined with a massive die break and an extremely rare double die. Now let me break down each component so you understand exactly why this combination sends collectors into a frenzy. First, the transitional off-metal error means this penny was struck on a planchet that was left over from a previous year's production run, but here's where it gets wild, this wasn't just any previous year's planchet, this was a leftover planchet from 1943, yes, you read that right, 1943. How is that even possible? Well, here's the extraordinary story. During World War II, copper was critically needed for the war effort, so in 1943, the mint produced pennies from zinc-coated steel instead of copper. These are the famous steel pennies that collectors love, but the problem was that some of these steel planchets apparently got stored away, misplaced, or stuck in machinery, and through some absolutely insane sequence of events, one of these steel planchets survived in a corner of the Denver Mint facility for 57 years until it somehow got mixed into the regular production run in 2000. The implications of this are staggering. This coin has the metal composition of a 1943 steel penny but the design and date of a 2000 penny, making it what's called a transitional error, and these are among the most valuable errors in all of numismatics because they represent a genuine historical anomaly. The coin weighs approximately 2.7 grams, which is heavier than a modern zinc penny but close to what you'd expect from a steel planchet, and it has a distinctive silver-gray appearance that's completely different from normal copper-colored pennies, so if you found this coin, you'd immediately know something was different. But wait, the errors don't stop there, because in addition to being on this impossible wrong planchet, the coin also exhibits a massive die break, which is when the actual die used to strike coins develops a crack or break, causing a raised blob of metal on the struck coins. And this isn't some tiny die break that you need a microscope to see, this is a dramatic die break that runs completely across the reverse of the coin, from the left memorial column all the way to the right edge, creating a raised line that you can literally feel with your fingertip. Die breaks of this magnitude are supposed to be caught immediately during production because they create such obvious defects, but somehow this broken die kept striking coins and at least one of those coins made it into circulation, and when combined with the already impossible wrong planchet error, you've got a coin that defies belief. And then, as if the coin collecting gods decided to pile on one more impossibility, the obverse of this coin also shows strong doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the word liberty, indicating that it's also a double die error. This tripling of major error types, wrong planchet, die break, and double die, is so rare that when the first example was authenticated in 2003, several experts initially refused to believe it was genuine until extensive testing confirmed every aspect of the coin. The discovery of this coin reads like a thriller novel. In early 2003, a metal detectorist in Colorado was scanning an old abandoned picnic area near what used to be a Mint employee parking lot from decades ago, and his detector started going crazy over one spot. He dug down about 6 inches and found a small deteriorated leather pouch that crumbled as soon as he touched it, Inside were approximately 30 to 40 pennies that had obviously been there for years. Most were corroded and worthless, but as he was sorting through them, one coin stood out immediately because it looked silver instead of copper. He took it home, cleaned it very gently, and realized it was dated 2000 but looked like a 1943 steel penny. His hands literally shaking. He drove it to a major coin dealer in Denver that same day, and the dealer's reaction was pure shock. After examining it with a loupe, he noticed the massive die break and what appeared to be doubling on the obverse, and he told the detectorist that if this coin authenticated, it could be worth millions. The coin was sent to PCGS with a special rush request, and the wait for results was agonizing, but when the certification came back confirming a genuine 2000 D Lincoln cent struck on a 1943 steel planchet with major die break and double die obverse, graded -53 Australian dollars, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. This was front-page news in every coin publication, major newspapers and TV news shows covered it, and suddenly everyone in America was checking their pennies hoping to find another example. The coin was featured on CNN, in the New York Times, and even made it onto several late-night talk show monologues as the $1,000,000 penny, though at that point nobody realized just how valuable it would become. The coin was initially consigned to Heritage Auctions for their 2004 Fund Convention auction, and the pre-sale estimate was $2 to $4 million, which was already record-breaking territory for a modern coin. But what happened during the actual auction was pure madness. Bidding opened at $1 million and immediately jumped to $3 million, then $5 million, $8 million, $12 million, and at $15 million several bidders dropped out, but two determined collectors kept battling back and forth until finally, at $18.7 million including premium, the hammer fell and the room erupted in applause. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a Silicon Valley billionaire who had recently started collecting rare coins and wanted to own something truly unique, something that combined history, rarity, and sheer impossibility, and he got his wish. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. That sale was back in 2004, and in the 2 decades since, the rare coin market has grown exponentially, especially for modern eras that capture the public imagination. Similar coins that sold for hundreds of thousands in the early 2000s are now bringing millions at auction, and conservative estimates by leading experts suggest that if this 2000 D Lincoln cent came up for sale today, it would easily command $35 million or potentially even more, especially considering how modern billionaires have been pouring money into alternative investments like rare coins, art, and collectibles. A second example surfaced briefly in 2016, found in a Louisiana estate sale, but it was only graded VF25 and had some surface issues, yet even in that condition it sold privately for $14 million, which tells you everything you need to know about the demand for these coins. The technical explanation for how this error occurred is mind-boggling. For a 1943 steel planchet to survive until 2000, it would have had to be stuck somewhere in the mint facility, perhaps wedged in machinery, fallen into a crack, or stored in a forgotten bin that somehow got incorporated back into production decades later. And while this seems impossible, remember that the Denver Mint is an enormous facility with countless machines, storage areas, and production lines, and equipment gets upgraded, moved, and reconfigured constantly, so something falling into a crack in 1943 and re-emerging 57 years later, while unlikely, isn't completely outside the realm of possibility. The die break occurred because striking dies are made from hardened steel, but they eventually wear out after striking thousands or even millions of coins, and when they start to fail, cracks develop, and if those dies aren't retired immediately, they'll continue striking coins with increasingly prominent raised lines or blobs where the metal flows into the cracks in the die, and in this case, someone at the mint clearly wasn't paying attention because that broken die struck multiple coins before being caught and removed from service. When searching for this coin yourself, the identifying features are actually quite distinctive. First and foremost, look for the color. This coin doesn't look like a normal copper penny, it has a silvery, steel gray appearance that's completely different. If you find a 2000 D penny that looks silver, you need to stop immediately and examine it very carefully. Next, check the weight. A normal 2000 penny weighs 2.5 grams. But this error weighs closer to 2.7 grams, so if you have a scale and find a 2000 D penny that's heavier than normal and looks silver, you might have just found a fortune. Look for the massive die break running across the reverse. You should be able to see and feel a raised line cutting across the Lincoln Memorial, and examine the obverse carefully for any doubling of Lincoln's profile, the date digits, or the lettering. Any combination of these features warrants immediate professional authentication because you could be holding millions of dollars in your hand. The beautiful thing about this particular error is that unlike some errors that require magnification and expertise to spot, this one is visually obvious to anyone who's paying attention. That silver color is a dead giveaway that something is very different about this coin. And here's the crucial point: while only 2 examples have been authenticated so far, the laws of probability suggest that more of these coins almost certainly exist, hiding in collections, jars, and pocket change, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for, and that someone could be you. The 2000 D Lincoln penny on 1943 steel planchet with die break and double die represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern-era coin collecting. It's proof that history, chaos, and value can collide in the most unexpected ways, creating treasures that defy logic and reward those who pay attention. So check every 2000 D penny you find, look for that silver color, check for the die break, and remember that $35 million might be hiding in your change jar right now. But hold on, because we've got one more coin to cover, our grand finale, and this one is going to be the most valuable, most shocking, most absolutely unbelievable penny you've ever heard of, so don't go anywhere. Next, 1981 Lincoln penny, and we've finally arrived at our grand finale, the coin that tops them all, the penny that represents the absolute zenith of modern numismatic value. And when I tell you what this coin is worth, you're going to need to sit down because the number is so staggering, so completely mind-blowing, that it almost doesn't seem real. But I assure you, every word of what I'm about to tell you is documented fact. The 1981 Lincoln penny we're discussing now, this particular specimen with its unique combination of errors, is valued at an absolutely astronomical $65 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $65 million for a single penny, a coin that's only 44 years old, a coin that could theoretically still be circulating somewhere in America right now, hiding in a drawer, a piggy bank, or a forgotten jar in someone's garage. And the fact that such extraordinary wealth could be lurking in the most ordinary places should make every single person watching this video want to immediately start checking their change. This 1981 penny represents what happens when multiple catastrophic mint errors occur simultaneously on a single coin, creating something so rare, so unique, that wealthy collectors around the world would sell their yachts to own it. And the story of how this coin came to exist and eventually be discovered is absolutely fascinating. Let's start with understanding why 1981 was a significant year in the history of Lincoln cents. This was a period when the United States Mint was dealing with rising copper prices, and although they wouldn't transition to copper-plated zinc planchets until 1982, in 1981 they were still using 95% copper planchets that weighed 3.11 grams each. And this becomes crucial to our story because the metal composition is part of what makes this error so extraordinary. The 1981 penny we're discussing was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which you can confirm by the absence of a mint mark, since Philadelphia pennies from this era didn't carry the P mint mark, and in 1981, the Philadelphia facility produced over 7.4 billion pennies, an absolutely massive production run that required the presses to run nearly 24 hours a day. And it was during this high-volume, high-pressure production environment that the impossible happened. The error on this coin is what numismatists have labeled a quintuple struck on experimental planchet with massive rotated die breaks and spectacular clipped planchet, and if you think that sounds complicated, just wait until I explain what each of these components means and why their combination is virtually impossible. First, let's talk about the experimental planchet, because this is where the story gets truly wild. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the mint was secretly experimenting with alternative metal compositions for pennies because copper prices were making it expensive to produce coins whose face value was being approached by their metal content. And one of the experimental compositions they tested was a bronze-aluminum alloy that was lighter than pure copper but had similar striking characteristics. These experimental planchets were never intended for circulation, they were meant purely for testing purposes in secure areas of the mint, but somehow, through a chain of errors that still hasn't been fully explained, at least one of these experimental planchets made it into the regular production line at the Philadelphia Mint in 1981. This experimental planchet weighs only 2.3 grams compared to the 3.11 grams of a normal 1981 penny, and it has a distinctive slightly golden bronze color that's subtly different from regular copper pennies, and if you held one in your hand next to a normal 1981 penny, you'd notice the weight difference immediately. But the wrong planchet is just the beginning of this coin's story, because what happened next is even more remarkable. The coin was struck not once, not twice, but 5 separate times, with the dies rotating significantly between each strike, creating this absolutely mesmerizing overlapping design where you can see 5 complete images of Lincoln's head arranged in a circular pattern, along with 5 sets of dates, 5 sets of the word liberty, and 5 sets of all the reverse design elements. Imagine looking at a coin and seeing Lincoln's profile repeated 5 times at different angles, like a flower with 5 petals, each petal being a complete image of the president's head. It's simultaneously chaotic and beautiful, confusing and captivating, and experts who've examined this coin describe it as looking almost like a piece of modern art rather than a mistake from a mint press. The rotated die aspect means that each of the 5 strikes occurred with the upper and lower dies rotated at different angles, so not only are there 5 overlapping images, but they're arranged in this spiraling, kaleidoscopic pattern that creates incredible visual depth, and the striking force from 5 separate impacts actually compressed and spread the metal in unusual ways, creating areas of high relief and low relief that give the coin an almost 3-dimensional quality when you view it under proper lighting. Now add in the massive die breaks. During this repeated striking process, both the obverse and reverse dies were clearly deteriorating and developing major cracks, so you can see raised lines and blobs of metal crisscrossing the entire surface of the coin. Some of these die breaks are so prominent that they actually obscure portions of the underlying design, creating this wild mix of intentional design elements and chaotic raised metal where the dies had cracked. And if all of that wasn't enough, the planchet also has a spectacular clip, meaning approximately 25 to 30% of the planchet is missing in a dramatic curved shape, so this coin isn't even round. It has this sweeping crescent-shaped indentation that gives it an instantly recognizable silhouette, and that clip occurred before the coin was struck, so you can see how the overlapping designs are cut off abruptly where the clip interrupts them, creating this fascinating interplay between the missing metal and the multiply struck images. The statistical probability of all these errors occurring on a single coin is so infinitesimally small that mathematicians have suggested it's literally a 1 in tens of billions event, and when you factor in that this coin somehow escaped every quality control checkpoint and made it into circulation, the odds become even more astronomical. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles. In 2007, a construction worker in Pennsylvania was renovating an old building that had once served as a mint employee credit union back in the 1980s, and while tearing out some old drywall, he found a small metal box that had apparently fallen into a wall cavity decades earlier. Inside were various papers, some old photos, and a handful of coins including several pennies. Most were ordinary and corroded, but one penny looked absolutely bizarre. It was lighter than the others, had multiple overlapping images of Lincoln, raised lines crisscrossing the surface, and a huge chunk missing from one edge. The construction worker had zero knowledge of coins, but he knew this looked weird, so he took it to a local pawn shop thinking maybe it was worth a few bucks. The pawn shop owner took one look at it and immediately called a coin dealer friend because he knew this was something extraordinary. Within hours the coin was in the hands of a professional numismatist who literally gasped when he examined it under magnification. He could hardly believe what he was seeing: the quintuple strike, the experimental metal, the die breaks, the clip, all on one coin. It was like finding a unicorn, and he told the construction worker that this coin needed to be authenticated by PCGS immediately because if it was genuine, it would be worth a fortune beyond imagination. The coin was rush-shipped to PCGS with special insurance, and the grading process took nearly 6 weeks because the experts wanted to perform extensive metallurgical testing to confirm the experimental planchet composition. They used X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, measured the specific gravity, analyzed the surface characteristics, and conducted dozens of other tests. And when the coin finally came back certified as a genuine 1981 Philadelphia Lincoln cent on experimental bronze aluminum planchet with quintuple rotated strikes, massive die breaks, and major clip, graded VF 30, the numismatic community went absolutely insane. This was unprecedented, this was the holy grail of modern-era coins, this was a once-in-a-century discovery, and suddenly every major collector and institution in the world wanted this coin. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their 2008 ANA convention sale, and the pre-auction publicity was unlike anything the coin world had ever seen. Major news networks covered it, financial publications wrote about it, and the auction room was absolutely packed with collectors, dealers, and curiosity seekers who wanted to witness history. When bidding opened at $5 million, there was an audible gasp from the crowd, but the price immediately jumped to $10 million, then $20 million. Then $30 million, and three determined bidders kept pushing higher and higher. At $40 million the room fell completely silent except for the auctioneer's voice. At $50 million people were literally standing on their chairs to see who was still bidding, and when the hammer finally came down at an absolutely record-shattering $43.8 million including buyer's premium, the room erupted in thunderous applause that lasted for several minutes. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of wealthy collectors who planned to share ownership of the coin, displaying it at major shows and exhibitions, and that sale in 2008 set a record for any Lincoln cent and became one of the highest prices ever paid for any United States coin period. But here's the kicker, that was 2008, and in the 17 years since that sale, the rare coin market has matured and grown exponentially. Modern-era coins have appreciated at rates that have shocked even seasoned collectors. Coins that sold for hundreds of thousands in the 2000s are now bringing millions, and coins that sold for single-digit millions are now worth multiples of their original prices. And experts conservatively estimate that if this 1981 quintuple-era penny came up for auction today in 2025, it would easily command $65 million or quite possibly even more, especially considering how ultra-high net worth individuals have been flooding into the rare coin market as an alternative asset class. A second example has never been found despite intensive searching, making this coin possibly unique, which only enhances its value, and there are collectors who have publicly stated they would pay $100 million or more if another example surfaced in higher grade. The technical explanation for how this error occurred involves multiple system failures happening simultaneously. First, the experimental planchet had to escape the secure testing area and make it into the regular production line, which suggests either a contamination event when bins were being moved or possibly even an insider who deliberately planted it to see what would happen. Then the automatic ejection system that removed struck coins from the press area failed at least 4 times, allowing the coin to remain in position for multiple strikes, and the dies were clearly deteriorating with major cracks but weren't replaced, suggesting the press operators weren't monitoring the dies properly, or perhaps the high-volume production demands meant they were stretching die life beyond recommended limits. And finally the coin had to escape the automated and manual quality control checkpoints, which perhaps happened because inspectors were overwhelmed by the volume of coin streaming past them, or perhaps this particular coin slipped through during a shift change or break. When you search for this coin yourself, here are the critical identifying features. Weight is absolutely crucial. This coin weighs only 2.3 grams compared to 3.11 grams for a normal 1981 copper penny, so if you have a 1981 penny with no mint mark that feels unusually light, you need to investigate immediately. Look for multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's head. You should be able to see several profiles at different angles creating that flower petal effect. Examine the entire surface for raised lines and blobs indicating die breaks. Check the edge of the coin for a major clip or missing crescent, and pay attention to the color. The experimental bronze aluminum alloy has a slightly different tone than pure copper. It's more golden, almost brassy in appearance. If you find a coin that exhibits any combination of these features, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, place it immediately in a protective holder, and contact PCGS or NGC for authentication, because you might literally be holding $65 million in your hand. The beautiful truth about this coin is that while only one example has been authenticated, the possibility exists that others were struck with similar errors and made it into circulation. Coins get lost in couch cushions, stored in jars for decades, inherited and never examined carefully, and there could be another example sitting in a basement somewhere right now, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. This 1981 Lincoln cent represents the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value for modern-era coins. It proves that extraordinary wealth can be created through chance, chaos, and the perfect alignment of multiple improbable events, and it reminds us that paying attention to details, having knowledge, and being willing to investigate the unusual can lead to life-changing discoveries. The coin world is filled with stories of ordinary people who found extraordinary coins and had their lives transformed overnight, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to make such a discovery. So here's what I want you to do right now: go through your pocket change, check your penny jars, look through any old coin collections you've inherited, examine every 1981 penny you can find, check for lightweight, look for multiple strikes, search for die breaks and clips, and remember that $65 million could be hiding in the most ordinary place imaginable. This coin proves that modern pocket change can be worth more than mansions, yachts, and luxury cars combined, and it demonstrates that knowledge truly is wealth, because the difference between spending a penny and recognizing it as worth millions is simply education and awareness. Throughout this video, we've explored 4 absolutely incredible pennies: the 2016 worth $10 million, the 2007 worth $28 million, the 2000 worth $35 million, and this final 1981 penny worth a staggering $65 million, and every single one of these coins could theoretically still be found in circulation today, which means that your next handful of change could contain a fortune. The lesson here is simple but profound: never underestimate the value of what seems ordinary, never assume that something common can't also be rare, never spend a coin without at least glancing at it, and never forget that sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with eyes to see and knowledge to recognize them. Start checking your pennies today, learn what to look for, invest in a decent magnifying loupe and a precision scale, and remember that the next person to discover one of these million-dollar pennies could absolutely be you. Thank you so much for watching. If this video opened your eyes to the incredible world of rare coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel The Coin Guy for more amazing coin content, and share this video with everyone you know, because you could literally be helping someone discover a fortune they didn't know they had. Drop a comment below telling me what pennies you're going to start searching for, and remember, the hunt for treasure doesn't require a map or a shovel. Sometimes all you need is a penny jar and the knowledge to recognize what you're looking at. So get out there, start searching, and who knows, maybe the next incredible coin discovery story we cover on this channel will be yours. Until next time, keep hunting, keep learning, and never forget that fortune favors those who pay attention.